debriefing from yesterday. It was exhausting, but it was so much fun. Anyway, so what we will do this morning, for this plenary in this morning, we will start with the debriefing from Wednesday, which was about policy, and then we will start to kickstart the regional roundtable discussion. We have 5 presentations from each region that we would like to share with you, and that would hopefully will provide the basis for the conversation that you will have in your tables. So I would first, let's just get the debriefing out of the way first, and then we will get into the roundtable discussion. So for the debriefers, we have a team, of course, many others that have been working hard for this. So we will I'd like to invite Milena and Madeline to come and help debrief from the Wednesday.
Morning. This is an attempt to summarize what we did on Wednesday in the policy day. So in this day we have a plenary about the roles of government in small-scale fisheries implementation. We describe the complexities and hierarchies involved in small-scale fisheries in the guidelines associated with governmental and bureaucratic processes. We acknowledge the importance of international collaboration and the efforts undertaken by governments that attempt to integrate national targets with local needs, which is quite difficult. Recognition of the core social principles that went beyond fisheries or resource management was also highlighted, like for example human rights, gender equality, dignity, cultural identity, and so on. We highlight the importance of participation of local small fishers representatives and civil society organizations in early stages of implementation. For the next plenary, the roles of policy influencers in small-scale fisheries guidelines implementation, we talk about policy influences as an art that requires lots of fineness. We talk about policy influencing requiring multidimensional and transdisciplinary approach. We must not restrict small-scale fisheries policy to this just one sector, but the guidelines provide an opportunity and pathway for broader connection across many sectors. Scientists have to understand that we have to build and collect information and data with communities and not just about them. It was suggested that the small-scale fisheries guidelines can be used to self-evaluate the work of NGOs, and we discussed around the need to shift the discourse from adopting rather than implementing the guidelines. Session 3, protecting livelihoods, promoting well-being and values. We had 9 speakers in this regular session who presented the work on livelihoods aspects from Brazil, Australia, Ghana, Gambia, Canada, and Papua New Guinea. The session discussed factors underpinning the resilience and vulnerabilities of small-scale fisher communities, enabling them to respond to rapid change and enhancing their livelihoods. As we have 2 examples, one from Brazil, where individual and household level responses to external change do not translate to community level resilience and adaptation. And one example from Papua New Guinea, where it was argued that recreational, the interaction between recreation and small-scale fisheries were not well understood and needed more attention. We also discuss and highlight livelihoods and their diverse connections, and the speakers stress the importance of what lies beyond the SSF economic contribution. The section 4 on tradition and innovation in governance. Presentations focus on governance arrangements as co-management and self-management, the implementation of the voluntary guidelines and the need of walking the talk, and new types of thinking. In this session, it was discussed also blue economy, which is widely used but somehow abstract, how it works with small-scale fisheries and how does it impact it, and the knowledge gap about how does small-scale fisheries fit within the blue economy.
So I'm just going to briefly introduce two other regular sessions. The first one here was about multiple tools, approaches, and perspectives in small-scale fisheries governance. So MPA, this session discussed how MPAs bring different forms of contestations, what it means, and how they are implemented. Small-scale fisheries governance needs to be analysed under different perspectives, including all components of the system. It also discussed examples around community enforcement committees, where communities, the rules made sense to communities and they took on the role of enforcing these rules. Another example that was mentioned here is that small-scale fisheries need to be involved in international policy reform, not just national levels, and this was specific for those small-scale fisheries that are targeting migratory species, such as tuna, for example. And the last regular session we had that day was addressing the multiple demands, the multiple governance challenges, and it focused on social equity and how that can be outcome of co-management, but also a tool to reach the outcome which we desire. And it also touched on the governance rules from government to community, that they have to be well applied at the regional scale. It also discussed that we can't let the communities deal with the problems in isolation, that there needs to be a wider recognition of the role of markets, and lastly that we have to accommodate both local and scientific knowledge. That was the briefing from us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm always amazed at how well these note takers and debriefers are doing when it comes to capturing all the key points. It's very challenging, as you can imagine. Okay, so thank you for that. So we kind of use that, right, as a way to build both from things that we talked about on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, in order to use that as a basis for the discussion that we'll have today, which is Action Day. It's all about what are we going to do with what we know, and what we're going to do as we move forward, looking ahead here. So as part of that, we would like now to invite people who have been working to put together, I like to call that a state of the art, so to speak, in terms of what we know about what's going on in each region. So this is based largely on various sources of information. So first, it's about the knowledge that is out there. So we're trying to synthesize that, whether it's published in papers, reports, government documents, and from informal sources as well, like through expert knowledge that we have consulted with. But the second source is actually through the information and knowledge that is being collected within ISSF, which you saw the presentation on Tuesday. This is our information system. So putting all that together in this synthesis report for each region is quite a challenge. So, but the team has been working in the last 2 years to put this together. And in a sense, what you have in your Congress kit, which is that global synopsis, the 4 pages glossy stuff, those are basically a synthesis of the 5 reports. And don't have a lot of context yet. They're more factual information that we presented at the moment, but of course that has to be enriched, and the conversation that we would have at the regional roundtables right after this, and also this afternoon, would be about bringing, more, enriching that a little bit and thinking about this kind of regional and global messages that we like to see. Okay? So, without further ado, I would like to invite the presenters. Now, where's the slide? Let's start from, I'm just going to go by this order, it's going to be easy. Let's start from. Let's start from Africa. Try to keep this within 5 minutes. Everyone can help you. Showing 2 minutes card when it's, yeah.
Thank you, Ratana, and thank you very much to the team, specifically Alicia, Melanie, for doing all of the hard work in compiling this document. I want to just in 5 minutes to speak about all the work that has been selected, and also the region. Okay, let's get into it. The importance of small-scale fisheries in terms of what is consumed is very important. In terms of the food security, the landings is all contribute to the importance of small-scale fisheries. I have to add that a lot of the data I have not referenced on the topic on here. It comes from the projects see around us and ICFS data of Too Big to Ignore. Valuable data contributing to the importance of trying to highlight the importance of fisheries in Africa. Africa is, of course, have the continent and rich in marine resources and coastal fisheries, so it has marine fisheries, but also more importantly, often neglected, often the stepchild of marine fisheries, and that is inland fisheries. And in terms of the importance and the food security, so it is important when we look at Africa, we look at the importance of both the inland fisheries and the coastal fisheries. Wrong button. It is also, in terms of the issues and the challenges, we look at what is contributed in terms of subsidies compared to small scale and large scale. A key issue on the continent is illegal, unreported and unregulated fisheries. It's also linked to fisheries crime, both especially on the coast, but also inland fisheries in terms of the gear that is used. There are also major concerns in terms of small-scale fisheries when it comes to the issues of livelihoods, when it comes to the issue of port governance is often a key issue in terms of the food security and livelihoods. When we looking at what are the prospects and opportunities for people in African small-scale fisheries, it is important that the socio-economic development, when we look at the women and the livelihoods, food security and nutrition are key socio-economic factors that influence this particular sector. Also supporting governance systems, and often we forget the importance of the local, traditional and communal level systems, and far too often we come with outside top-driven approaches and not necessarily looking at the governance systems. There's an important part of in the region to look at how we understand transdisciplinary approach to the implementation of small-scale fisheries, and also to link the fisheries with the guidelines. Coming back to the guidelines, I think that one of the things that I want to kind of a take-home message from the conference is that we we speak about blue growth, we speak about sustainable, we speak about small-scale fisheries processes, we speak about the sustainable development goals. We speak about people we speak about the life below the water, but we also need to speak about those who are on the water, especially small-scale fishers. We have to speak about the illegal activities, and that is one drone picture of some of the illegal activities that is happening. We cannot lessen the role of the voluntary guidelines. The voluntary guidelines in terms of governance of tenure and small-scale fisheries is an important part of all of this. So when we look at the blue growth and blue growth initiatives, there's a big conference in Nairobi at the end of November, and we look at blue growth. To what extent does the blue growth actually translate to blue justice for small-scale fisheries? Where can we look at blue growth, blue justice in terms of looking at those who are on top of the water and the activities that happen on land, the vulnerability of the sector and the women. And I would also like to use this opportunity to urge everyone to strengthen the regional data and to strengthen the synthesis report. We also need to help you to contribute to the data. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay, moving on to the next presentation. That would be Asia. So, no, what's your name? Melinda, of course, not the other one. Okay, Mel, come.
Thank you, Ratana. So this is the Asia, just like a very brief overview of what we've done for the report. So as you can see, the Asian Oceania has several subregions. There are 6 there, and 5 of these subregions are having both the marine and inland fishery, while the last one, which is the Central Asia, is purely inland. Okay. As for the importance of small-scale fisheries, we know that one of the greatest importance is that it feeds millions of people. It provides livelihoods to increasing population and maintain the social and cultural fabric of fishing-dependent communities in the region. So globally, Asia generates the highest production of fish from small-scale fisheries, contributing to the local demand for fish and seafood. So, as you can see in the graph for the top 20 countries that has this, for the catches and landed volume, we can see that China, India, Indonesia, and Japan were the highest in terms of catches. But in terms of the landed volume, it's the China and Japan are the leading countries. So this data, as Maniva has mentioned, is from the sea around us. On the right side, you can see the distribution of how fish from small-scale fishing are distributed, and we gathered this through the ISSF data. So you can see there, majority of the fish are locally consumed, at household level and within the community. So it's just a very small amount that goes outside or for non-food uses. And this is like just a couple visuals that I put for the characteristics of the fisheries in the region. So you can see I have put the top 10 species that are commonly caught in the region. And according to the Sea Around Us data, Asia has the most number of species in all the regions. There are at least 480 that are identified and many others that are not identified at the species level. So 480 out of the 1,100 species that we know on a global level. And out of this top 10 species represents 12% of the total landed weight for the region. And this is the same for the total landed value. The top 10% represent 12% of the total value. I thought I should also put what we got on the modes of governance in the region, because it is very unique compared to other regions. As you can see, it's still top down, 31%, but as you can see, the rest, like self-governance, community-based, co-governance are all within the same amount of proportion. So Asia is in that governance mode where you can see variety of modes of governance. And these are, as what Africa has done, we're showing some of the issues in the light of these subsidies. So as you can see, there's a lot of inequalities in terms of how subsidies are distributed. And the biggest issue in the region, when we looked at the literature, is the overcapacity in overfishing, which we can see is aggravated by the subsidies, as we know, especially for the large-scale fishing, that encourage sustainable exploitation. And we know that this could lead easily to impairing the economic viability of small-scale fisheries. So most, as you can see there, the large-scale fisheries has 72% of capacity enhancing, while for the small-scale fishing, you can see it's way less, it's 45%, so there's a lot more fraction for the beneficial subsidies. That's the blue color. And on the right, you can see how these subsidies are distributed to country level. China has the most in terms of dollar value to subsidies to small-scale fisheries. No, the highest is Japan, followed by China, and then India. And as you can see, in the Middle East, there's a lot of beneficial subsidies. And for the prospects and opportunities, the region has numerous bodies that are designed to manage fisheries or promote cooperation not only on the national level but across countries. And we thought that that might be a very good starter if you want to pursue sustainability. And on these two that you can see, the organizations that are in the region or involved in the region are mostly more on the governance and politics, but are also 11% that are involved in research, and a lot of them, 30%, a huge chunk, are involved in doing projects and programs at the community and national levels. And those are the different activities that are involved in. On the right side, you can see there's a lot of collaborative, sustainability, and others. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nell. All right, so what's the next region, Jack? Oh, it's you. So, multitasking, huh? Okay, we'll ask Jack now to talk a little bit about what we know of where things are in North America, which means US and Canada in this case.
Hello, so I'm going to talk about North America, small-scale fisheries, and the report that we compiled. So the importance, some of the key points about the importance of small-scale fisheries are that they convey incredible harvest and distribution, and distribute important benefits to diverse coastal and inland fishing communities, including indigenous nations and local communities. The challenges affecting their vitality are significant fodder for our transdisciplinary efforts. And as we can see here, with the proportion of small-scale fisheries landing value compared to the large-scale, on the image of the continent, the dark blue is the small-scale fisheries. So you can see it's 40% in the United States and 5.4% in Canada. And then we have the regional breakdown by sub-region. So an entry point into understanding those benefits are we're looking at where these catches are going. You can see that these catches are almost evenly distributed within markets, outside of them, and in coastal. We heard a lot about really great initiatives for self-governance and co-management this week. In North America, however, the experience is often top-down, hierarchical policy that is governing our fisheries, as we can see here. And there's been a lot of research done on the governance of those fisheries, and so, that leaves open a question of how effective is this type of governance, and what do we need to do to move to a more effective type of governance. So some of the issues and challenges in North America are centered around subsidies that have advanced the large-scale fisheries agenda, and the small proportion of subsidies that are provided for small-scale fisheries have had mixed purposes and effects. In Canada, for example, subsidies often have ambiguous intentions, and small-scale fisheries lack formal recognition at the constituted levels and in the principles that shape how decisions are made. So research agendas have emphasized the power, justice, and voice through a critical lens on neoliberalism and its manifestation in governance practices and outcomes. Yet there are bright spots, including really great rebuilding efforts in the United States and a low percentage of fish stocks in critical zones in Canada. Yet, intensifying climate change, economic development in key fishing grounds, and pressures from global forces, both climatic and economic, do still plague the region. So moving forward, much of the research done in the region has been on governance, and yet key gaps remain, and are we really making progress? We need to bring inland fisheries into the fold here. We have massive freshwater river, lake, and delta systems that face rapid changes, and sometimes disastrous effects in fisheries and communities. In North America, there are lessons that can be learned from the indigenous communities that have been resisting forces such as neoliberalism and privatization, and so a greater focus on those communities would be beneficial for research done in North America. And finally, viability and vulnerability. The focus around viability and vulnerability for these regions are to learn lessons from the different aspects of the fishery, from where we see efforts to have trawling bans in the Alaska region to efforts in Newfoundland with innovative social-based approaches. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
That's great, Jack. Thank you so much. Okay, next presentation. Latin America and the Caribbean. That will be presented by Mirela. You know that these people are very brave, right, to be standing here and doing this, so.
Good morning. My name is Mirela, and I'll be presenting this synthesis, regional synthesis about Latin American Caribbean fisheries. First, I'd like to let you know that this is a draft version, and you're all invited to contribute to this. So we expect to have your comments and suggestions during the discussions after this session. So this is Latin American Caribbean has been, for the purpose of this report, has been divided in 3 sub-regions: the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, and South America. Small-scale fisheries in Latin American Caribbean have played a significant role in generating employment, income, livelihoods, and food to more than 2 million people that are small-scale fishers, and also to society at large in this region. Small-scale fisheries catches are only about 1/3 of total catches in the region, but they're responsible for about half of the landed value. This shows the high economic importance in the region. And here we can also see in the first figure how that is distributed amongst the 3 sub-regions, with the Caribbean having both the highest proportion of small-scale fisheries contributing to landed value and to levies. Small-scale fisheries catches in Latin America and the Caribbean are mostly destined to household consumption as well as to be sold at local markets. And together these represent about 60% of the distribution of catches.
That shows also the high importance for food security in the region. Latin American and Caribbean is also one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. Just as an example, 5 of the Latin American and Caribbean countries are amongst the 10 most biodiverse countries in the world. And this high biodiversity reflects on the total number of species caught in the region, as you can see on the map. So that can reach up to more than 250 species caught in some of the countries. That high diversity of species also reflects on the diversity of gears and techniques that are used in small-scale fisheries in the region, following the dynamics of resource availability. The main species vary widely, as you can see in figure number 4 over there. And also you can see in the bars the total catches, and on the lines you can see the landed value. So for example, in the Caribbean, benthic species of high economic value like this tiny lobster account for both the highest catches and highest landed value. In Mexico and Central America, the species with highest catches are the Humboldt squid, and while the eastern oyster represents most of the landed value. And in South America, and just to illustrate the kind of information we presented in the report, croaker accounts for most of the catches, while the Peruvian scallop represents most of the landed value, as it's a highly valuable species. Despite its contribution to employment and food security that has been acknowledged for the region, small-scale fisheries does not receive much of the fisheries subsidies. Even though Latin America and the Caribbean receives more of the fisheries subsidies in comparison to other regions, which is about 32%, and most of them are beneficial subsidies. Still, large-scale fisheries get the largest share, and these are mostly used for capacity enhancement. And this becomes a problem in a situation where we have limited financial and technical capacity for fisheries management in the region, which also aggravates overfishing. We also have issues with ocean grabbing and conflicts between multiple users of the marine environment. And also with climate change that is over for all regions, and we discuss this issue with more detail. So just to close, some of the opportunities lie on co-management strategies that have been applied in the region, and based on our ISSF data, we can see that there's about 27% of co-management arrangements in the region, and I'm going to close up now. And there's a lot of beneficial subsidies being used, which could go towards fisheries management and the high value per ton of fisheries. So these two things could be used towards giving opportunities for fisheries in line with the SSF guidelines of sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mirela. So the final report would be about small-scale fisheries in Europe, the regional synthesis. This will be presented by Addition.
Hello, everyone. So I will speak about the European small-scale fisheries and the importance to the fisheries in the region. So basically, as I introduced earlier this week, the small-scale fleet in Europe represents 80% of the fleet. However, it targets 20% of the catches. So we can already see a little bit of imbalance between where the catches are going. There are more than 200,000 people employed in the sector, in both the pre-harvest, harvest, and the post-harvest. The landings are around 2 billion per year, and of course, the small-scale fisheries are important for the local economies, for fish supply to restaurants, especially in the tourist areas. They are also important for the social fabric of the communities, and their engagement in low-impact fisheries are important for stewardship purposes. With regards to characteristics, the definition of small-scale fisheries in Europe, like many other countries, is that less than 12 meters, and the fishers are engaged in passive gears, including fight nets, hand lines, long lines, gill nets, and terminal nets. Most of the small-scale fisheries in Europe are family-owned, so the enterprise is quite low capital, so of course their risk and resilience is comparatively low. And in terms of governance, the main governance structure for European Union is the common fisheries policy, and then you have different structures at the national, regional, and local level. A very impressive diagram prepared by the TPPI team about the organizations that exist around Europe. So there are different forms of organizations. There are flags, okay, fisheries local action groups, cooperatives, unions, and also associations who are involved in different activities, including marketing, networking, and capacity building. However, even though there are a lot of these organizations working there and giving support to small-scale fisheries, we are still faced by a number of issues. It was a very mind-blowing, the issues that are felt across the different regions. I was present at different sessions, and I could notice the issues faced by fishers in the developing countries are also faced in the developed countries, like in the Europe case. So if you were to open this, the 4-pager, okay, you would realize that small-scale fishers in Europe get 10% of the subsidies. It's the lowest rank. So whereas Latin America, they get 32%, and in Africa, they get 30%, in Europe, it's only 10%. So it's the lowest region that receives subsidies. Apart from that, they face issues related to access to markets and to resources, the struggle for quota, which I mentioned earlier this week, the problems related to congested seas, and this kind of privatizing indigenous and fishing grounds, which belong to the fishers and are now being pushed out for different other users, and a big problem of the grain fleets. Okay, we have a situation where youths do not afford to buy a boat. Okay, we have a situation where the investment is so high that they cannot afford to join the sector. So the capital needed is an entry barrier for the sector to regenerate itself. So looking into the future, I think both the science, the community, and the policy, which are the 3 themes of this week's conference, are an important 3 bridges which we need to look for the future of small-scale fisheries. The alignment of the Sustainable Development Goals to the guidelines, and the need for transdisciplinary research approaches. Okay, as I already mentioned, there's this narrative that small-scale fisheries are something of the past, but we need to start changing the narrative and speaking of fishers of the future. We need to see better, for example, the recognition of the small-scale fisheries and advisory councils, the strengthening of fishers organizations, and better fisheries scientist collaborations. And of course, we need to continue monitoring the leadership of small-scale fisheries representatives. Are they really representing their fishers, the power inequities? And also, as I mentioned, the problems related to subsidies. We need better subsidies and infrastructure for the small-scale fishing sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so those were the 5 reports, which could serve as a basis for the conversation about the regional roundtable. So what we would like to now move into is indeed those roundtable discussion, right? So we have asked, all the presenters of the regional synthesis reports would be joining the table. We have some people that we have asked to help lead this conversation, facilitate the conversation at each table. The copies of the report are available there as well for, if you feel that it would be helpful to make reference to that. But the important thing about what we are trying to do at the regional roundtable is to be able to think about the knowledge based, for instance, on the regional synthesis and some of the opportunities that have already been identified, and come together to think, trying to address as well these cross-cutting questions that we have started the Congress with. So we should think about these questions, think about what we know, and see what we can do to move the conversation forward. It's Action Day. So when we want to come out of this regional roundtable discussion, would be something about what would be the kind of actions, initiatives, activities, strategies, whatever program that you think you should put together or moving to develop them in order to position small-scale fisheries in a much better place, and more importantly, to support the future, the sustainability and the viability of small-scale fisheries in the region. Okay, so after that we'll come back. We probably would spend quite a lot of time in this. So if you feel for it, we could extend the regional roundtable to about 12:15 or 12:20, and then start the plenary session at 1:30. Okay, so give you a bit more time to put it together, because when we come back here in the plenary at 1:30, we would want you to start sharing what you talk about in your tables, in your region, to the rest, and so that we can use that as a basis to develop that regional and global initiatives and action plans going forward. Okay, so did I start from Africa? So Africa would go into Taratong 2, which is across the hall. Asia would go into Taratong 1, next door.